Hello friends and welcome to Metalworld Channel. Today we have Mr. Salam Sharif. Uh, he is from Middle East and let me introduce Mr. Sharif. He is chairman of Ambassadors Committee of International Bureau of Recycling. He is also honorary chairman of Middle East Bureau of Recycling. Moreover, Mr. Sharif also runs organization Sharif Metal Group. So welcome Mr. Sharif to our show.
Thank you, Chanjagarji. Appreciate your taking the time and being all under lockdown and
Yeah,
taking the time
yeah.
from your family. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Sharif, let me ask you my first question. How is the present situation in Middle East industry, especially in metal recycling industry?
Chanjagarji, the situation in the Middle East is really being hit by more of double hit crisis. One is the overall crisis, which everybody is suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. And that has, of course, been unprecedented. It has put the overall economy, social, and financial sectors down to its knees. It's unprecedented, and they say this has not been seen since the Great Depression in 1938. So, with such a situation, the overall sectors have been affected from the overall recycling industry related to basically the upstream primary industries, secondary industries, and downstream that have been rarely working in about 30% volume. That has affected also the entire sectors of the economy, the banking industry, the overall tourist industry, all the sectors with regards to social and financial and health impacts. So that has really been a devastating impact where the overall motto of the government has been just focusing on the health and safety of its citizens and residents. Now, the Middle East has not been affected as bad as other regions worldwide because the Ministry of Health has put enough budget to look after the uh, requirements of apparatuses and the hospitals and the units which take care of its citizens. And I think the UAE is one of the most accommodating countries in terms of health-wise, and it has facilitated, but nevertheless, the impact is devastating worldwide. So you can say that it has paralyzed the economy with regards to the overall activity. Lockdowns have really put the activity into almost uh, sitting at home and trying to work in a virtual world where online has bridged the day-to-day activities. It's something that it has not been experienced before. Now, it has also the other leg, which has hit the oil industry, where we have seen the oil prices have hit below zero, almost
Mm.
$37 below zero for the futures market of May. Drop has not been ever experienced, and that has overall, though the oil prices have rebounded a little bit into the normal $27 afterwards after covering the futures market. But when we see all the oil tankers worldwide are going around trying to look for storage warehouses to offload their cargoes,
Yes,
that
yes,
has really made the water that we're drinking much more expensive than the oil. And that has really affected the budgetary spending of the government big times. And it would perhaps run it into a deficit. Now, with that having said, it has affected the government spending budgets with regards to the infrastructure, with regards to the planned investment which was put forward. It has also put the Expo 2020 off for another year. and that was expecting to have about 20 odd million tourists this year in Dubai in particular, and in the Saudi Arabia, for example, having about an average of 40 million visitors to visit the shrines of Mecca and Medina year-wise, and we are now in the Ramadan month. So with having about 60 million visitors and tourists out of the scene for this year, that is going to put a lot of the expected income into a deficit. And with that, the metal industry has been badly hit because of the main source of supplies, as you see, either the end-of-life materials or the manufacturer's surplus products throughout the manufacturing sector. So with the collection system has been paralyzed down to about 20 to 30%, that has put a lot of recycling industries into halt. Now, being operating from homes, we realize that the operations have not been really working on day-to-day. Only when enough supplies are available, where on call basis, they open up the yards for entertaining the peddlers and suppliers. And with that, I think it's pretty badly hit, that it put the entire industry into a whole situation. Now, getting into another line of the problems, which on the outlets, shipping cargoes into the Indian sector, where the lockdown has affected all the congestion of containers in hundreds and thousands of containers, that has paralyzed the movement of logistics, which has in turn stopped the cycle of the financial uh, usual routine cycles.
Mm.
And with that, suppliers could neither be able to ship more cargoes until the backlog is cleared out, nor the buyers can take more materials until they manage to cope with the clockage of containers at their ports. So it's as bad as we can sound it.
Yeah, Mr. Sharif. The situation seems to be jammed totally. And but when the lockdown is lifted, how do you think the metal industry can think of revival? What are the steps? How do they go forward?
You have a normal when you have a normal knee surgery. I think it takes you at least a month or two to go back to walk on your feet. So mind that this kind of situation is not as easy as being able to foresee how it will work in the near future, without having to, first of all, being able to deal with uh, the social and health components of the society. You got to deal with the workers. The workforce is very important. How to rehabilitate the workers to come back to normal routine of operations. You really have to take care of their health, social distancing, ensuring that the virus will not be contagious once again and end up in losing more of the momentum uh, and start from scratch. You really have to consider the fact is that uh, one has to restructure in
Mhm.
terms of financial structure, terms of operational structure, social restructuring, even on terms of households. You and the families, and you must be also working from home.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you realize all the family members have not been used to seeing you 24/7 at home. And on one hand, you really have to deal with the psychology of all the
Yeah.
family members of the workforce, whether they're in the staff, white collar, or in the blue collar in the factories. Looking after their health and safety is one of the most important components, so as they'll be able to go back to work productively. Looking into their financial situation by being able to afford running your operation without having any shortfalls, so as your cycle is completed. Looking into the overall, uh, you can say, contractual terms of how the cycle of buying, selling, and realization of the money coming back through is a question of strategic decision, whether would I be able to run back on full swing, or I prefer to run only on 30% of my workforce, so as to realize that my uh, jammed cargo or the cargoes in the pipeline in different parts of the world. I got their financial realization of the documents, then I'll be able to put it back on stream. So it has to do a lot with how to uh, think beyond that in terms of what is your objective. Is every trader or recycler thinking they want to go back on full swing and operate on full capacity? Or they're thinking after this very difficult lesson that we may not be really trying to run after the last dollar of our money or even the last ton of our materials, and rather being content with limited volume and limited financial deployment to this industry, to realize and wait and see how the line will be streamlined and the curve will be flattened to move forward into more of a steady flow of business back to normal. Though, in my opinion, to go back to normalcy, it's not going to be less than 12 months forward for us to really have the confidence to move forward with full swing and be able to operate back as normal.
Yeah, very well said, sir. It is an individual decision whether to go in full swing or whether to get content with whatever little they can do. But at this point, sir, what support do you expect from the policymakers?
Well, the policymakers, as far as the most of the Middle East region out here, and I'm talking living in Dubai and UAE, they've been quite generous in terms of slamming $100 billion as a stimulus package, where it's being deployed to a lot of banks on corporate and personal level. But that also gets back to the decision making and to the evaluation of bank to bank, which sector to deploy it into, and which particular industry to focus on. So I would say banks overall have to realize that this is an unprecedented situation, and they have got to really appreciate that the SMEs are the backbone of the industry, and they should have a proper financial package and stimulus, or at least some deferral to overdue payments, which has been also accommodated by the central bank appreciately. Um, I would say governments have to issue all facilitation with regards to the recycling industry in general, and to ratify that as one of the essential industries, which unfortunately that is not being the case in a lot of the countries out here in the region. They would not consider or classify our recycling industry as essential industry. Though in some parts of Europe and the United States, it's being considered by the government as essential industries, and it has received the due support. So my request is that, considering that our industry, one of the backbones for raw material supplies to the secondary and downstream industry, and it is rather, um, I call it a primary industry, though the primary industries don't like to hear this, because when we realize that end of life material and the scrap generated worldwide, considering that as the urban mine, where if we take it into the industries in replacement to the virgin metals, that will definitely save a huge amount of carbon footprints and emissions, where the recycling industry uh, saves at least 700 million tons of carbon oxide emissions. If we realize with the lockdowns that it's been, on one hand, devastating to a lot of economic and social sectors, but environmentally speaking, we've realized that all the natural uh, uh, and the entire life and wildlife has come back to normality. You could see the sea is blue again. You could see the sky is back to normality. You could realize that having seen a lot of the animals and that you have never seen except in cages. They're going back unleashed into being back to normal. So what I'm saying is that kind of industry is worth really considering and supporting all the way, financially, logistically, legislatively, because a lot of the government's bills and decisions, if they're cracking down and not supporting that kind of sector of industry, that will not help the economy in overall means, and that will not look into any sustainability in the future. I would also uh, expect that, which is in due course, it's happening, all the awareness campaigns about the health and social, uh, uh, educational for households as well as businesses as well as individuals. It's been launched on different programs within the Middle East channels worldwide. So I would say, just considering the fact that bringing this industry back into normalcy will bring the overall economic wheel back in order.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously, sir, metal recycling industry is one of the very important industries. If we all have to go towards the concept of green planet, and now everybody has started realizing the importance of this industry. Uh, you have already said that it will take more than 12 months for the metal recycling industry to come back on the track. So after 12 months, do you really think the whole world and the metal recycling industry will be again back and swinging ahead?
Well, as I said, and I put the analogy earlier, if you jerk your knee, you may need at least a week or two to recover. If you had
Yeah, yeah.
a knee surgery, it may take about a month or two. Now, mind that this has been an economic dislocation in terms of what's happening
Yes, obviously.
with this COVID-19. So I think 12 months minimum period that it requires for really to have the rehabilitation of the economic wheel, because it's got to work socially and financially in tandem as well. So this is my personal opinion. And if we have extended lockdowns forward, I think that that may be an unforeseen situation that will really depends on how the individuals are cooperating with the government and with the decision makers in the country by really abiding by the lockdowns and realizing that this is for their own welfare and personal and family benefit, not to run particularly for trying to think economic rewards and making money is your ultimate goal. Now we've realized that this is really completely worthless if you have any infection of a disease which will put you bedridden and perhaps, God forbid, into another life where you realize what you've spent in 3, 4 decades are worth really nothing compared to having a good sound health. So looking into the social and, um, I would say, health concerns is very important to really put the economy back on the wheel. And 12 months is pretty much good enough. And I've heard some worldwide decision makers and some presidents of countries talking about 2 years. But I think
Okay.
within the region out here, we're pretty much blessed with the government's healthcare spendings. We have all the apparatuses and all the equipments available in any pharmacies, and the hospitals are really taking care of any infected people without any, I would say, uh, lack of support. And with that, I think 12 months is just good enough to get it back in order.
Yeah, let's hope it happens. And thank you very much, Mr. Sharif, for speaking to us. It was really a pleasure. And we wish the Middle East industry, especially the recycling industry, bounces back as early as possible. Thank you very much.
Pantakarji, I convey my regards to your metals group and to you particularly. You've been quite concerned, and interactive with a lot of decision makers in this industry. Let me convey my prayers to all the attendants of this channel in terms of looking after your health and safety. And good family is something indispensable, no matter whether the economy comes back to normality or not, whether you make millions or even any amount of money. One has to learn being content and being in good health is the way to look forward for future generations. Thank you very much for
Thank
having me on this
thank
channel,
thank
and
you.
I do look forward to be of help in the future for any other queries out of this region. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So this was Mr. Sharif, and he expressed that the industry will bounce back, but it will take a lot of time. I mean, more than a year. And he's quite happy with the policies of the present governments in the Middle East. Middle East has one more issue. They have also issue of oil pricing. So he also discussed that with us, and that's it. It was very interesting this discussion, and thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.